Hello and welcome to this first look exploring session of If You Know Not Me, You Know Nobody, Part 1, or as it's perhaps more just better title and possibly more accurate for its original performance title, perhaps The Troubles of Queen Elizabeth. It's a history play written around 1604-ish, pretty much basically Queen Elizabeth dies, Heywood gets out his pen. That's basically the framing for this particular text. And yes, it's a relatively short part one. There is a sequel that follows. Some of the text is from considerably later. We have a later prologue for a revival, but the rest of the text seems to be, broadly speaking, around the idea of what it was at the early part of the 17th century. To read through this play, we have reading Queen Mary, and a servant is...
Hi, my name's Elizabeth Amisu, based in Romford.
Reading Not Yet a Queen, Elizabeth, and Beningfield is...
Hi, I'm Lynn Freitas, coming to you from the northwestern United States.
Reading Winchester and First Soldier is...
Hi, Alan Scott from Suffolk.
Reading Dodds, Gentlewoman, and a Boy is...
Lois in London. If you know not me, you're in good company.
Reading Tame, Cook, and Second Soldier is...
Hello, I'm Helen Good, I'm a historian, and I'm also in London.
Reading Chamberlain and Dr. Wendith is...
Rachael Nicole, actor on the East Coast.
Reading the prologue, Gage and Philip is...
Briony Sparrow, actor in Lincolnshire.
Reading Chandos and Third Soldier is...
Aliki, Chapple, actor and translator in Lancashire.
Reading Sussex and Clown is...
Lalitte, I'm a teacher coming from Calvados today.
We are short a reader at the moment, so there's also some additional parts that may dance around the room. But joining us to read Howard is...
Hello, I'm Tamara. I'm an actor and producer currently in Germany.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be reading stage directions and maybe the odd part if suddenly everything goes horribly, horribly wrong, which indeed it may. So without further ado, we have a prologue to the play of Queen Elizabeth, as it was late revived at the Cockpit, which the author taxeth the most corrupted copy now imprinted, which was published without his consent. So this prologue, which appears some 25 odd years after the original production, may be doing some score settling and may not be a very useful prologue for anyone wanting to perform it today. Prologue, take it away.
Plays have a fate in their conception lent. Some so short-lived no sooner showed than spent, but born today, tomorrow buried, and though taught to speak, neither to go nor stand. This, by what fate I know not, sure no merit that it disclaims, may for the age inherit. Writing above 21, but ill nursed, and yet received as well performed at first. Graced and frequented for the cradle age, did throng the seats, the boxes, and the stage, so much that some by stenography drew the plot, put it in print, scarce one word true, and in that lameness it hath limped so long, the author now to vindicate that wrong hath took the pains upright upon its feet to teach it walk, so please you sit and sit.
Yeah, there's no bitterness there at all.
I love it.
Yeah, piracy's real, people. Buy from approved vendors.
So is fast, apparently.
I don't know if anyone wants to throw any additional comments on that. It's rather fun, but not necessarily something we'd use today. Tamara.
I do actually just want to comment on this because I think it's a brilliant speech and I think it needs to be performed by itself.
We have a segment on the podcast just for prologues, and that's suddenly got very high up the list of things to do. So I think that's rather fab.
Could actually be quite a nice audition one.
Say again, Alan?
Could be a nice audition type speech, which I know Tamara's making a collection of.
Very context heavy. And I'll ask Tamara later if she wants that edited out. Lalitte.
Yeah, I was going to say, it could have worked for almost any play, though, couldn't it? That's been, plagiarised and put around. And I was also noticing I didn't know stenography was a word then. It sounds so kind of 19th century to me.
Lois.
Yeah. No, there were several systems of shorthand already, but yeah, it's talking about a fairly specific occasion, though. I mean, a play that is being revived about, some time after it was first put on, and he says it's as well received as it was at first, and it was hugely popular at first. That's why everybody was doing these illegal copies of it and printing it.
Rachael, and then we'll move on to the play proper.
So wait, was this written during Queen Elizabeth's time about her sister?
No. This was written basically once the body was cold, then Heywood started. So it's probably the year after, a suitable distance to see what the world was going to allow. This may create all sorts of interesting textual problems or issues as to what the play then depicts, which we will find out anon. But yeah, not during the reign, not during the lifetime of her, Lynn.
Wasn't it actually illegal to make plays about living political figures? So yeah, he had to, it wasn't just sort of out of political caution. It was that you couldn't do that.
Though the relative speed is interesting. You usually wait till at least one remove, I would have thought. Anyway, we must get into the text itself before we start speculating about what the text is actually going to do before we've actually read it. So, as we're labelling it, Scene 1, enter Sussex and Lord Chamberlain.
Good morrow, my Lord Chamberlain.
Many good morrows to my good Lord of Sussex.
Who's with the Queen, my lord?
The Cardinal of Winchester, the Lord of Tame, the good Lord Chandos, and besides, Lord Howard, Sir Henry Beningfield, and divers others.
A word, my lord, in private.
And at this point, Tame and Chandos.
Touching the Queen, my lord, who now sits high, what thinks the realm of Philip, the Emperor's son, marriage by the council treated of?
Pray God prove well.
Good morrow, lords.
Good morrow, my good Lord of Sussex.
I cry your honour's mercy.
Good morrow to the Lords of Tame and Chandos.
The like to you, my lords, as you were speaking.
Enter Lord Howard and Sir Henry Beningfield.
Concerning Wyatt and the Kentish rebels, their overthrow is past. The rebel dukes that fought by all means to proclaim Queen Jane, chiefly Northumberland, for Guildford's sake, he forced his brother duke into that war, but each one had his merit.
Oh, my lord, the law proceeded against their great offence, and 'tis not well, since they have suffered judgment, that we should raise their scandal, being dead. 'Tis impious, not by true judgment bred.
Good morrow, my lord. Good morrow, good Sir Henry.
Pardon, my lord, I saw you not till now.
Good morrow, good Lord Howard.
Your honours, the like to you, my lords.
With all my heart, Lord Howard.
Forward, I pray.
The Suffolk men, my lord, were to the Queen the very stairs by which she did ascend. She's greatly bound unto them for their loves.
Enter Cardinal of Winchester.
Good morrow, lords. Attend the Queen into the presence.
Your duties, lords.
And everybody exits and re-enter Tame, bearing the purse, Chandos the mace, Howard the sceptre, Sussex the crown, then the Queen, after her the Cardinal, St. Low, Gage, and attendants.
By God's assistance and the power of heaven, we are instated in our brother's throne, and all those powers that warred against our right. By help of heaven and your friendly aid, dispersed and fled, here we may sit secure. Our heart is joyful, lords, our peace is pure.
I do beseech your majesty, peruse this poor petition.
Oh, Master Dodds, we are indebted to you for your love. You stood us in great stead, even in our ebb of fortune, when our hopes were near declined, and when our state did bear the lowest sail, which we have reason to requite, we know. Read his petition, my good Lord Cardinal.
Oh, gracious sovereign, let my lord the Duke have the perusing of it, or any other that is near your grace. He will be to our suit an opposite.
And reason, fellow. Madam, here is a large recital and upbraiding of your highness' sovereignty. The Suffolk men that lifted you to the throne and here possessed you claim your promise you made them about religion.
True, gracious sovereign, but that we do upbraid your majesty or make recital of our deeds forepast, other than conscience, honesty, and zeal, by love, by faith, and by our duty bound to you, the true and next successive heir. If you contrary this, I needs must say your skill-less tongue doth make our well-tuned words jar in the princess' ears, and of our text you make a wrong construction. Gracious queen, your humble subjects prostrate in my mouth a general suit. When we first flocked to you and made first head with you at Framlingham, 'twas thus concluded that we, your liegemen, should still enjoy our consciences and use that faith which in King Edward's days was held canonical.
May it please your highness note the commons' insolence. They tie you to conditions and set limits to your liking.
They shall know to whom their faithful duties they do owe, since they, the limbs, the head would seek to sway. Before they govern, they shall learn to obey. See it severely ordered, Winchester.
Away with him! Shall be thoroughly scanned, and you upon the pillory 3 days stand.
And exit Dodds. Beningfield speaks.
Sorry. My bad. Has not your sister, gracious queen, a hand in these petitions? Well, your highness knows she is a favorite of these heretics.
And well remembered. It's not possible that she, in Wyatt's expedition and other insurrections lately quelled, was a confederate. If your highness will your own estate preserve, you must foresee for danger, and cut off all such as would your safety prejudice.
And such is your sister, a mere opposite to us in our opinion. And besides, she's next successive should your majesty die issueless, which heaven defend.
Which heaven
defend.
The state of our religion would decline.
My lords of Tame and Chandos, you two shall have a firm commission sealed to fetch our sister, young Elizabeth, from Ashbridge, where she lies, and with a band of armed soldiers to conduct her up to London, where we will hear her.
And Tamara, could I ask you to step in and read Sentlow, please?
Gracious queen, she only craves but to behold your face, that she might clear herself of all supposed treasons, still protesting she is as true a subject to your grace as lives this day.
Do you not hear with what a fancy impudence this Sentlow here presumes?
Away with him. I'll teach him know his place, to frown when we frown, smile on whom we grace.
'Twill be a means to keep the rest in awe, making their sovereign's brow to them a law.
All those that seek our sister's cause to favour, let them be lodged.
Young Courtenay, Earl of Devonshire, seems chiefly to affect her faction.
Commit him to the tower, till time affords us and our council breathing space.
There is a horn within.
Whence is that post?
My sovereign, it is from Southampton.
Our secretary, unseal them, and return us present answer of the contents. What's the main business?
That Philip, Prince of Spain, son to the Emperor, is safely arrived and landed at Southampton.
Prepare to meet him, lords, with all our pomp.
Prepare you, lords, with our fair queen to ride, and his high princely state let no man hide.
Set forward, lords. This sudden news is sweet. 2 royal lovers on the midway meet.
And everyone exits. And there we're going to pause, welcoming Sarah Blake to the room, to the party. Welcome, welcome, as the Constable there, and we'll be doing some doctoring later on. So we've sort of got 2 scenes for one. We've sort of got this prelude sequence where everyone comes on and goes, "Hello, my Cardinal of Winchester. Hello, Lord of Tame. Hello. Oh, here is Beningfield." And everyone comes in mid-conversation about something frightfully important that's happened off stage recently. And then we get to the actual meat of the scene with the Queen trying to consolidate her power, Queen Mary, and the various different things that are at play going on in this scene. How did we find this scene? I was somewhat distracted with admin things. How was it landing for everyone else? How were we finding this flurry of business? I'll go to Lois first.
Well, he's squeezing in an awful lot of recent history. I mean, fairly efficiently. I mean, all that hello, so-and-so stuff is a bit boring, but it does give the impression, certainly, of a court gathering. And I think probably of, a rather tense period with lots of people with different agendas and so on. I think it could be quite effective.
Well, it's supposed to go with business. I think that's the important thing. There's bustle. They've got a state ceremony that are about to be performing. So I think, yes, they are. You're right. There's an awful lot of good morrow, stuff going on, but there is action, I think, implied with it. So and you're right. It's packing in a lot of data. It's throwing a lot of data at the audience, not a lot of which the audience may necessarily need to hold on to. We'll figure that equation out slightly later on. Rachael, then Elizabeth, I think.
What was Sussex trying to say to the Chamberlain, or is that revisited later? Or is that just supposed to symbolize something like how every once in a while, when we were reading older stuff, it was supposed to be the Magna Carta or like some other document that I don't know the name of, and I'm confusing with the Magna Carta.
I don't know what Sussex was talking about, but possibly something that was happening else. I don't know. See if anyone else was paying attention to what Sussex was talking about. I'll go to Elizabeth while we mull on that.
Yeah, I really loved some of the language in this. There's a line that I really liked. It said, "Your skillless tongue doth make our well-tuned words jar in the princess' ears, and of our text you make a wrong construction." I really liked some of the language in this, and I think Dodds kind of stood out to me amongst the courtiers, the Privy Council. I think he really stood out. I like this narrative of the helpers of the Queen. And already we're starting to see in play sort of the rivalry between Princess Elizabeth and Queen Mary, which I think is quite interesting because it's definitely going somewhere.
Yes, it's Helen.
Yeah, I mean, I see the Lords as very nervously polite. It's a brand new regime, and everybody is waiting to see what way things happen. I mean, it's perfectly possible that she might have said to Dodds, "Yep, I really needed you at Framlingham when Queen Jane was proclaimed. And yes, liberty of conscience, always a good thing." She doesn't. And the audience would know she doesn't. And poor old Dodds is in deep doo-doo. But
Technical term.
nevertheless, sorry, yeah, it's a historical term. We
Yeah.
we use it a lot. But the thing is that I think it's always a new regime. Although this isn't a new regime because she's got through Wyatt's rebellion, but nevertheless, it's all very iffy. So I think all this excessive politeness is very much feeling each other out.
Yeah,
And rather
Lynn.
nervous at the beginning.
I think it's really interesting that Elizabeth perceived something different about Dodd, because he is, in fact, an advocate for ordinary people. So he's probably not quite on the same level, status-wise, class-wise, rank-wise in this scene. And he is one of the good guys. He, according to the worldview in place when this was written, because he's defending Protestants. And Mary was Catholic, and but he's saying a bunch of us who were believing Protestants, according to which her predecessor, her brother Edward, was a staunch Protestant. So we want to be able to continue to practice that in peace. So as far as the audience watching this in 1604, 5, 6, 10, whatever, he's a good guy because he's a Protestant. So yeah, he is. He should stand out. That was very perceptive.
Lois.
I'm not sure the exact date of the play called Sir Thomas Wyatt, but it was one of the earliest things Webster was involved in, though it was a multi-author play. But I have a feeling it might have been before this, because the Wyatt's rebellion is referred to so glancingly, as if everybody was bound to know about it. Of course, that's part of Heywood's skill of giving that impression of being right in the middle of things. Everybody knows what they're talking about.
Rachael, I think you're waving, and then we're probably going to move on, as we're still very early in the play.
Why? I mean, I know this is a new sort of dynasty, I guess, that you're getting with, is it James, who's just comes in after Elizabeth, or because it's written a year out? Okay. That how come when these history plays are written, they're always written like time, how this is called the Troubles of Queen Elizabeth, or that might have been the title. And how, before you have this conversion to Protestantism, that period of England is also portrayed as like a troubled time. Is this just a way of, making it, welcoming in the new regime, or, or criticizing the past one because you couldn't? I'm so confused.
I think it's just simply that Queen Elizabeth had some troubles. I think it's a straightforward plot thing. I don't think. I think you can overthink this. Queen Elizabeth is not the queen yet. She is living under the auspices of her sister, who is queen, and so Elizabeth has got some problems coming up. And so there may be additional other things on top of that, but I don't want to linger too much on that. Lois, and then Aliki.
Well, it's possible there's a political agenda here. I mean, we're at the beginning of James's reign, and people weren't absolutely sure about James's religion. His mother was Mary, Queen of Scots, who was regarded by Catholics as a martyr. James was brought up as a Protestant, but there were, people could think he might go either way now that he was on the throne. So here is a play which is very, very strongly pro-Protestant, and suggesting how marvelous it was when we got a Protestant queen on the throne eventually, and how bad it was when we had a Catholic queen on the throne.
Yes, and that sense of uncertainty about which way the monarch is going to leap very much speaks to its time, doesn't it? Yeah. A leaky.
I just thought, who's going to buy tickets to the peaceful and uneventful?
Yeah, I mean, we had this comment. I think Helen made this about the problem of dramatising the life of Thomas Cromwell. Because we had a lot of fun with the play of Thomas Cromwell, but once you remove all the stuff that's politically impossible, all you've got left to mention is he was quite well organised and governed quite efficiently within his lights, and then he dies because of reasons you can't discuss. So if you're moderately successful, there's not much of a play. So anyway, we should move on to what we're calling scene 2. We could have split the first scene into 2 units of action, or it's going to be very much dependent on how you want to think about these things. Scene 2, however, we meet Master Gage and a gentlewoman.
Good morrow, mistress. Came you from the princess?
Oh, Master Gage, I did.
How fares her grace?
Oh, wondrous crazy, gentle Master Gage. Her sleeps are all unquiet, and her head beats and grows giddy with continual grief.
God grant her comfort, and release her pain. So good a lady few on earth remain.
Oh,
Enter the clown, I apologise. Quite important to make it clear. Enter the clown.
Oh, arm.
Oh, now, what's the matter?
Oh, Lord, the house is beset. Soldiers as hot as fire are ready to enter every hole about the house. For as I was atop of the stack, the sound of the drum hot me such a box of the ears that I came tumbling down the stack, and with 1,000 billets at the top of me. Look about and help, for God's sake.
Heaven guard the princess. Grant that all be well. This drum, I fear, will prove her passing bell.
And enter Tame and Chandos with soldiers, drum, etc.
Where is the princess?
Oh, my honoured lords, may I with reverence presume to ask what means these arms? Why do you thus begirt a poor weak lady near at point of death?
Resolve the princess, we must speak with her.
My lords, no, there is no admittance to her presence without the leave first granted from herself.
Tell her we must and will.
I'll certify so much.
And exit gentlewoman.
My lords, as you are honourably born, as you did love her father or her brother, as you do owe allegiance to the queen, in pity of her weakness and low state, with bed of favour her commiserate.
Enter gentlewoman.
Her grace entreats you but to stay till morn, and then your message shall be heard at full.
'Tis from the queen, and we will speak with her.
I'll certify so much.
It shall not need. Press after her, my lord.
Enter Elizabeth in her bed, Dr. Owine and Dr. Wendith.
We are not pleased with your intrusion, lords. Is your haste such, or your affairs so urgent, that suddenly, at this time of night, you press on me and will not stay till morn?
Sorry we are, sweet lady, to behold you in this sad plight.
And I, my lords, not glad. My heart, oh, how it beats.
Madam, our message and our duty from our queen, we come to tender to you. It is her pleasure that you, the 7th day of this month, appear at Westminster.
At Westminster? My lords, no soul more glad than I to do my duty to her majesty. But I am sorry at the heart, my heart. Oh, good doctor, raise me. Oh, my heart. I hope, my lords, considering my extremity and weakness, you will dispense a little with your haste.
Dr. Owen, Dr. Wendith, you are the Queen's physicians, truly sworn. On your allegiance, as before her highness you will answer it. Speak. May the princess be removed with life.
Not without danger, lords, yet without death. Her fever is not mortal, yet you see into what danger it hath brought the princess.
Your opinion, sir?
My judgment is not deadly, but yet dangerous. No sooner shall she come to take the air, but she will faint, and if not well prepared and attended, her life is in much danger.
Madam, We take no pleasure to deliver so strict a message.
Nor I, my lords, to hear a message delivered with such strictness. Well, must I go?
So says the Queen.
Why, then it must be so.
Tomorrow early, then, you must prepare.
'Tis many a morrow since my feeble legs felt this body's weight. Oh, I shall faint, and if I taste the rawness of the air, I am but dead. Indeed, I am but dead. 'Tis late. Conduct these lords unto their chambers, and cheer them well, for they have journeyed hard, whilst we prepare for our morrow's journey.
Madam, the Queen hath sent her letter for you.
The Queen is kind, and we will strive with death to tender her our life. We are her subject, and obey her hest. Good night. We wish you what you want. Good rest.
And they exit, presumably riding in her bed. Queen entering in her bed, so brought on. There's some interesting questions here about how much of this is real sickness or how much of this is play acting. I really like the line, if I taste the rawness of the air, I am but dead. And then, indeed, I am but dead. And I'm wondering if that I am but dead that second time is, if you leave where you currently are to go and visit you might not come out of this situation alive. That there is a real threat to Elizabeth's life if she leaves where she currently is and goes and visits the Queen, because she doesn't know where this is going. So there's some nice things going on in this, and a sense of drama to it all. Thoughts from the room? Anyone want to... how are we feeling about Elizabeth? Princess Elizabeth at this stage. Elizabeth, I'll go to first. Her older sister. And then Rachael.
She's coming across a little bit wet to me at the moment. I wanted her to kind of, I don't know, I think I have this image of her because of film and because of film portrayals of her as being so brave and sort of dynamic and like a war hero and stuff. So I'm expecting her to kind of come out guns a-blazing and saying oh, I'm this and that. But this version of her is quite subdued.
It's part of that question of how much of this is play acting so that she doesn't leave. I mean, that's but that's an interesting question. But also, she's younger and she's not necessarily as engaged with the political world as her myth will make her later on. So there's an interesting question of what Elizabeth's journey in the play will be. Rachael, then Lynn, and then we will move on because I don't want to linger here too long.
No, yeah, I mean, it depends on what a production wants to do, but the last line that Tame says, may the princess be removed with life, it could be a thing where removed with life just sounds like removing her of her life, like murdering her. And there could be that decision where, they're being very cautious to see how much they push her leaving. Because if they're going to force it right now, it could mean that she's going to the Tower or something like that.
Yeah, the two doctors' opinions are really vague, aren't they? Well, she's not going to die, perhaps, if you move her, but she's still really not very well. She keeps fainting, at which point she demonstrates some fainting. So, yeah, it's really interesting where they land. I'll go to Lynn, then I will briefly go to Sarah, and then we'll move on.
Well, I mean, evidently, Elizabeth actually did suffer from these sort of stress-related physical ailments. I mean, we have sort of valorized her to this very heroic, but at this point in history, Elizabeth really couldn't afford to be defiant. Really, her life was in the balance, and she did evidently suffer from migraines and stuff like that because the stress was so intense. There was some question about whether she was too ill to travel. I mean, all of this is stuff that I have read about as historical. So the play actually is being as It's tracking very closely with the history as I've learned it.
And I'm sure we'll get to debates about what do we mean by history and in history plays later on. Sarah.
Yes, I mean, following on from what Lynn was saying, yeah, she's barely 20 years old at this point. She's in her late teens probably, and she's been told that she's illegitimate, and she's in fear for her life. So she's not the Elizabeth that we kind of know. That's kind of not to be expected, really. And just picking up from what you said, Rob, I mean, if she was mighty and formidable at this early point in her life, the play wouldn't really have a journey to go on. Whereas as it is, I'm assuming we're going to get a massive dramatic arc as she grows into the woman that she is famous for. So, from a playwright's point of view, that's kind of what you want. You don't want to have this character on one level the whole time. You want it to grow and go on a big dramatic journey.
And also, it's the middle of the night. It's really inconvenient to pack up and leave now. I mean, there's not going to be any trains. So anyway, sorry. We will move on, however, to scene 3. Hold on to any thoughts or throw them into the chat as we go into a return to Queen Mary. Enter Queen Mary, Philip, and all the lords except for Tame and Chandos.
Thus, in the face of heaven and broad eye of all the multitude, we give a welcome to the Spanish prince. Those plosive shouts which give you entertain echo as much to the Almighty's ears, and there they found with pleasure that excels the clamorous trumpets and loud ringing bells.
Thrice excellent and ever gracious princess, doubly famous for virtue and for beauty, we embrace your large-stretched honours with the arms of love. Our royal marriage treated first in heaven to be solemnized here, both by God's voice and by our love's consent. We thus embrace. Now, Spain and England, two populous kingdoms that have long time been opposed in hostile emulation, shall be at one. This shall be Spanish England, ours, English Spain.
And there's a flourish.
Hark the redoubling echoes of the people, how it proclaims their loves and welcome to this union.
Then here before the pillars of the land we do embrace and make a public contract. Our souls are joyful, then bright heavens smile, whilst we proclaim our new united style.
Read, Sussex.
Philip and Mary, by grace of God, King and Queen of England, Spain, France and Ireland, King and Queen of Naples, Sicilia, Leon and Aragon, Archduke and Duchess of Austria, Burgundy, of Brabant, Zealand and Holland, Prince and Princess of Sweden, Count and Countess of Hapsburg, Majorca, Sardinia, of the firm land and main ocean sea, Palatines of Jerusalem and Hainault, Lord and Lady of Friesland, and of the Isles, and Governor and Governess of all Africa and Asia.
Long live the Queen!
Long live the
Long
King
live
and
King
Queen! And there's another flourish.
We
Thank you
all.
When please your highness to solemnize this your nuptials?
The 25th day of this month, July.
It likes us well, but, Royal Queen, we want one lady at this high solemnity. We have a sister called Elizabeth, whose virtues and endowments of the mind have filled the ears of Spain.
Great are the causes, now too long to say, why she, my sovereign, should be kept away.
The lords of Tame and Chandos are returned.
Indeed, enter Tame and Chandos and Gage.
How fares our sister? Is she come along?
We found the princess sick and in great danger, yet did we urge our strict commission. She much entreated that she might be spared until her health and strength might be restored.
2 of your highness doctors we then called, and charged them, as they would answer it, to tell the truth, if that our journey's toil might be no prejudice unto her life, or if we might with safety bring her thence. They answered that we might. We did so. Here she is, to do her duty to your majesty.
Let her attend. We will find time to hear her.
But, royal queen, yet, for her virtue's sake, deem her offences, if she have offended, with all the lenity a sister can.
My lord of Winchester, my lord of Sussex, Lords Howard, Tame, and Chandos, take you commission to examine her of all supposed crimes. So, to our nuptials.
What festival more royal hath been seen than twixt Spain's prince and England's royal queen?
And exit. So a bit of pageantry, some flourish, some long live the king and queen. Queen Mary's gained a husband. It's all's going to be well. There's going to be a lengthy, wonderful relations between Spain and England for, I think, the foreseeable future. I can't see anything going wrong with that relationship at all. You can almost feel the ripples of irony going through the crowd as those lines are said, and how that all sort of lands. Any thoughts on this sequence, Helen, then Rachael?
Yes, what I liked, which is very, very true to history, is that Philip had very definite ideas about what should happen, and the Queen took absolutely no notice of him at all.
Yeah. Rachael.
The little date when they're gonna have that on. I don't know if they haven't referenced astrology, but because they have astrology in this time, and there is that stuff that date they're marrying would be in Leo, which is really it's like supposed to be the sign of royalty and regalness. So I don't know, there's some idea from that this will perhaps be a very lavish wedding.
And it's also interesting. I want to know who Winchester is talking to. So when Philip says the line about, we have a sister called Elizabeth. Where's Elizabeth? And Winchester goes, there are good reasons why she shouldn't be here, my lord. And I'm just wondering how many people are supposed to hear that line. I'm just quite interested as to who he's talking to at that moment. And just the possibility of spin for so many of these little lines of dialogue. Lynn, then Helen.
Yeah, the possibility of spin, exactly. Because, if you know the history, which I would think some of this audience would have, because this is relatively recent. All of this is happening 45, 50 years in the past. So this might still be pretty familiar to people. When Philip says, our sister-in-law, we've heard great things about her. Well, that's just really kind of needling the Queen, whether he knows it or not. Philip was quite a bit younger than Mary, and would go on to propose to Elizabeth once Mary was dead. So, if you know that, you're kind of like, oh, that's probably really irritating to Mary. It's like your husband praising your younger half sister with whom you have always had a very tense relationship. Yeah, so
Philip can't read the room, basically, can he? I'm liking that about him, actually. Just, Helen.
Yeah, just coming back to Rachel's point, astrology was a church crime. Astrology when it concerned royal personages, was a capital offence. You start making astrological predictions about any member of the royal family. If you are found out, you die.
Briony, follow that.
Wow. I was just going to comment on this really different dynamic that Philip offers when he comes in, because he's got this pompous, really unaware kind of vibe about him. Like I noticed the comment, which would have been definitely noted by Mary when he said about how Spain's captivated by Elizabeth. It's like he's just sort of blundering in, doing what he likes without even realizing what ripples it's causing.
So there's lots of nice dynamics going on here. I'm enjoying myself so far. Let's see what the next scene throws at us. We have a slightly longer scene than we've had so far, I think. So scene 4: enter Elizabeth, her gentlewoman, and 3 household servants, of which only we got a servant and a cook who speak. I don't think we have. The third one, I don't know if they say anything.
Is not my gentleman usher yet returned?
Madam, not yet.
Oh God, my fear hath been good physic, but the queen's displeasure, that hath cured my body's imperfection, hath made my heart sick, brain sick, and sick even to death. What are you?
Your household officers and humble servants, who, now your house, fair princess, is dissolved and quite broken up, come to attend your grace.
We thank you, and are more indebted for your loves than we have power or virtue to requite. Alas, I am the queen's, yet nothing of myself, but God and innocence. Be you my patrons, and defend my cause. Why weep you, gentlemen?
Not for ourselves. Men are not made to weep at their own fortunes. Our eyes are made of fire, and to extract water from fire is hard. Nothing but such a princess grief as yours, so good a lady, and so beautiful, so absolute a mistress, as perfect as you ever have been, have power to do it. Your sorrow makes us sad.
My innocence yet makes my heart as light as my front's heavy. All that heaven sends is welcome. Gentlemen, divide these few crowns amongst you. I am now a prisoner, and shall want nothing. I have some friends about her majesty that are providing for me all things, aye, even my grave. And being possessed of that, I shall need nothing. Possessed of that, I shall need nothing. Weep not, I pray. Rather, you should rejoice if I miscarry in this enterprise, and you ask why. A virgin and a martyr, both I die.
Enter Gage.
He that first gave you life, protect that life from those that wish you a death.
What's my offence? Who be my accusers?
Madam, that the Queen and Winchester best know.
What says the Queen unto my late petition?
Who are denied that grace, her Majesty will not admit to conference. Sir William Sentlow, urging that motion, was first committed since sent to the Tower. Madam, in brief, your foes are the Queen's friends, your friends her foes. 6 of the council are this day appointed to examine you of certain articles.
They shall be welcome. My God, in whom I trust, will help, deliver, save, and defend the just.
Enter Winchester, Sussex, Howard, Tame, Chandos, and Constable.
All forbear this place, unless the princess.
Madam, we from the Queen are joined in full commission.
And they sit, and she kneels.
By your good favour, good my lord, ere you proceed, madam, although this place doth tie you to this reverence, it becomes you not, you being a princess, to deject your knee. Chair there.
My duty with my fortunes do agree, and to the Queen in you I bend my knee.
You shall not kneel where Sussex sits in place. The chamber keeper, a chair there for her grace.
Madam, perhaps you censure hardly that was enforced in this commission.
Know you your own guilt, my Lord Chancellor, that you accuse yourself? I think not so. I am of this mind, no man is my foe.
Madam, would you submit unto her highness?
Submit, my Lord of Winchester. 'Tis fit that not but base offenders should submit. No, my lord, I easily spy your drift. Having nothing whereon you can accuse me, do seek to have myself betray. So by myself mine own blood should be spilt. Confess submission, I confess a guilt.
What answer you to Wyatt's late rebellion? Madam, 'tis thought that you did set them on.
Who is it? Will say so. Men may much suspect, but yet, my lord, none can my life detect. I a confederate with those Kentish rebels. If I e'er saw or sent to them, let the queen take my head. Hath not proud Wyatt suffered for his offence, and in the purging both of body and soul for heaven, did Wyatt then accuse Elizabeth?
Madam, he did not.
My reverend lord, I know it.
Madam, he would not.
Oh, my good lord, he could not.
The same day Throgmorton was arraigned in Guildhall, it was imposed on him whether this princess had a hand with him or no. He did deny it, cleared her for his death, yet accused others.
My God be praised. This is news but of a minute old.
What answer you to Sir Peter Carew in the West, the Western rebels?
Ask the unborn infant. See what that will answer. For that and I are both alike in guilt. Let not by rigor innocent blood be spilt.
Come, madam, answer briefly to these treasons.
Treason, my lord. If it be treason to be the daughter to the 8th Henry, sister to Edward, and the next of blood unto my gracious sovereign, the now queen, I am a traitor. If not, I spit at treason. In Henry's reign, the law could not have stood. O God, that we should suffer for our blood.
Madam, the Queen must hear you sing another song before you part with us.
My God doth know I can no note but truth, that with heaven's king one day in choirs of angels I shall sing.
Then, madam, you will not submit?
My life I will, but not as guilty. My lords, let pale offenders pardon crave. If we offend, law's rigor let us have.
You are stubborn. Come, let's certify the queen.
Room for the lords there.
And exit the council.
Thou power eternal, innocence just guide, that swayest the scepter of all monarchies, protect the guiltless from these ravening jaws that hideous death present by tyrants' laws. And as my heart is known to thee most pure, grant me release or patience to endure.
And enter Gage and servants.
Madam, we, who are poor humble servants, make bold to press into our Grace's presence to know how our cause goes.
Well, well, I thank my God well. How can a cause go ill with innocence? For they to whom wrongs in this world are done shall be rewarded in the world to come.
Enter the 6 councillors again.
It is the pleasure of Her Majesty that you be straight committed to the Tower.
The Tower? For what?
Moreover, all your household servants we have discharged, except this gentleman, your usher, and this gentlewoman. Thus did the Queen command. And for your guard, 100 northern whitecoats are appointed to conduct you thither tonight, and to your chamber tomorrow early, prepare you for the Tower. Your barge stands ready to conduct you thither.
And she kneels.
O God, my heart, a prisoner in the Tower. Speak to the Queen, my lords, that some other place may lodge her sister. That's too vile and base.
Come, my lords, let's all join in one petition to the Queen, that she may not be lodged within the Tower.
My lord, you know it is in vain, for the Queen's sentence is definitive, and we must see it performed.
Then to our chamber, comfortless and sad, tomorrow to the Tower, that fatal place, where I shall ne'er behold the sun's bright face.
Now, God forbid, a better hap heaven send, thus men may mourn for what they cannot mend.
And they exit. So yes, we're about halfway through episode 1 of Elizabeth R. And stand by for some location filming where everyone gets quite damp. I like Gage. I'm really liking Gage in this scene of just wandering on and going, "Hi, we're screwed." I've just come from over there, and all your friends, they're stuffed, and all your foes doing really well. Hi. Just adding to the woes, and then this sort of Inquisition scene. The stage direction of the sitting and kneeling, slightly misplaced. But yeah, there's an interesting question about levels here, about the authority of the interrogators, Elizabeth being put into, or putting herself into a position of submission. There's a lot of dynamics about how this scene functions. The servants are being ordered out of the room, and the servants coming to her at the beginning as well, going, because we've come directly to you because the household's being dissolved and everything we had before is falling apart. So everybody's up in the air here. It's really interesting, and coming immediately after the scene with Queen and Philip, after that initial scene where the Queen was sort of testing the waters, and then a scene with of pomp and circumstance, to this, which is feeling much more desperate. There's a lot going on here. Again, Rachael, and then Aliki.
I wonder, because we have an interesting doubling here with Elizabeth as the servant and as Queen Mary. And maybe a production would want to work with the idea of whether or not Princess Elizabeth has a sort of spy sent by her sister, spies within her household from her sister. And if this is why she conducts herself in a certain way, and if she knows, if there are spies, if she knows who they are or who they're not, or if it winds up being who she didn't think, or, playing with something like that. Because I think an actor could have a fun time, because they're praising to God, and this innocence, that talk that she's doing has a different motivation than it would after the council comes in, and she's really and she finds out she's going to the tower. And then also just how you said the Spanish Inquisition scene, I think that playing with that after Philip shows up, and that Mary's mother was Princess of Castile at some point. Maybe there are supposed to be those echoes there, and that dialogue about religion and what Mary could bring to England, or brought to England. I don't know the history.
Aliki.
I was just thinking that, we were talking about Elizabeth as being a bit wet and disappointing before. But here she is, right, very, very precise and not yielding an inch. They're trying to bully her into saying she was involved in these plots. And she's being very intelligent, she's being very careful, and she's sticking to her guns.
And I have to say, the importance of the Wyatt rebellion as well is a continuing theme. It wasn't just a throwaway in that first scene. It was a question of how much in that first scene is data we need to hold on to and how much isn't. And I almost feel that the play needs to open with sounds of battle and that sense of bustle leading into the political world as well, just to really make it clear how tenuous and that there is a genuine, or there was a genuine threat, or supposed genuine threat. Helen.
Yeah, genuine threat. I think the rebels got as far as London Bridge, the Southwark side. It was Mary did a tremendous job of managing the defence of London. Personally, it was a real heroic moment.
Other thoughts from the room? How are we finding it so far? Lalitte?
I quite like the way even quite small parts are differentiated. So the aggression of Winchester versus the way Sussex is trying to make it not quite too bad, and is obviously very uncomfortable with what's happening. And that's quite a nice touch.
Yeah, I mean, it's 6 councillors. There's a lot of people coming on throwing the odd random line out, and that's interesting, because that's a choice. Whereas I'd almost automatically go, how many of these can I remove? Can I make the scene smaller? But actually, I'm now sort of resisting that slightly, just going, actually, no, if the scene is designed this way, maybe there's a really good structural purpose to it, that actually Elizabeth is getting questions constantly coming from different directions, that there's something quite dynamic about that, and that they have different approaches to their interrogation. Other thoughts? Lynn?
And it would make sense that Elizabeth's most adamant critic would be the Bishop of Winchester, the Catholic bishop, because this is all about religion. That's definitely the wedge in this culture at this time is Protestants versus Catholic. Our notions of being able to coexist really didn't obtain in this culture. That was just like, that would be a really weird idea to them, the idea of religious freedom or even religious toleration. That would be like, what? No, you can't do that. So he might be a Protestant. So yeah, absolutely, Elizabeth is super dangerous, and so the Catholic bishop would be her chief enemy.
Yes, definitely the harshest one, and he brings up the word. Is he the first one to bring up the word treason and sort of really push it to that degree? And whereas some other people might just be reading the prepared questions that they're supposed to do, and some people are doing a slightly different thing. So I'm liking that. Yeah, Helen.
Yeah, I've just been quickly Googling to see which Winchester it was. Because this is the beginning of the reign, this is Stephen Gardiner, who is left over from the Thomas Cromwell story.
Right.
It's just it's possible. I wouldn't like to say, because there was a changeover, but at the beginning of Mary's reign, it was Stephen Gardiner.
And and that's an important production decision to be deciding, if there are additional stuff that you want to hand an actor and say, follow this is your guiding principle, as well as what's in the text. I'm trying to keep us more focused on what's in the text rather than history, but inevitably we're going to leak between the two. Okay, let us move on to scene 5, or what we're calling scene 5, with some new characters, as it were. We have had in the last scene 100 northern whitecoats were mentioned. Scene 5, enter 3 whitecoat soldiers with a jack of beer.
Come, my masters, you know your charge. It's now about 11. Him of us watch till morning, then carry the princess to the tower.
How shall we spend the time till morning?
Mass, we'll drink and talk of our friends.
Aye, but my friend, do not talk of state matters.
No, I'll not meddle with the state. Hope a man may say without offence, prithee drink to me.
With all my heart, i' faith, this a man might lawfully speak. And now, in faith, what wast about to say?
Must I say this? The Lady Elizabeth is both a lady and Elizabeth. If I should say she were a virtuous princess, were there any harm in that?
No, by my troth, there's no harm in that, but beware of talking of the princess. Let's meddle with our kindred. There we may be bold.
Well, sirs, I have 2 sisters, and the one loves the other, and would not send her to prison for 1 million. Is there any harm in this? I'll keep myself within compass, I warrant you. For I do not talk of the Queen, I talk of my sisters. Keep myself within my compass, I warrant you.
Aye, but sir, that word sister goes hardly down.
Aye, sir. I hope a man may be bold with his own. I learned that of the Queen. I'll keep myself within compass, I warrant you.
Aye, but, sir, why is the princess committed?
Maybe she does not know herself. Maybe the Queen knows not the cause. It may be my Lord of Winchester doth not know. Maybe so. Nothing's impossible. Maybe there's knavery and monkery. There's nothing impossible. Is there any harm in that?
Oh, shoemaker, you go a little beyond your all.
Why? In saying nothing's impossible? I'll stand to it. For saying a truth's a truth, I'll prove it. For saying there may be knavery and monkery, I'll justify it. Do not say there is, but maybe. I know what I know. He knows what he knows. Marry, we know not what every man knows.
My masters, we've talked so long, I think 'tis day.
I think so too. Is there any harm in all this?
None in the world.
And I think by this time the princess is ready to take her barge.
Come then, let's go. Would all were well. Is there any harm in all this? But alas, wishes and tears have both one property. They show their love that want the remedy.
And they exit. Soldier 1, nothing's impossible. You might think that I couldn't possibly comment. What a fascinating little scene. Hi, we're here to collect they're not ready yet. Let's have a discussion about what we're allowed to talk about.
And a few jars.
Yeah, Aliki and then Lynn.
That's really interesting, and we would have to sit around and unpick it, but it's very much, oh, who, me? I'm not talking about the Queen's sister. I'm just saying, my sister. Shh, don't say the word sister.
Yeah, and you know, there are plenty of societies of recent times, and even today, where you know the codes with which you discuss political matters in a state which will not allow you to discuss political matters is an ever-shifting thing. I mean, Soldier 2 seems to be the slightly cagey one of saying we do not talk of state matters. Number 1 is clearly desperate to talk about state matters, and draws number 2 in a bit as they go, and number 3 sort of dancing about all over the place. But yeah, number 1's done this before. You get the impression number 1 just can't help himself. Lynn, then Alan, then Helen.
Yeah, I really like this scene. I think it's a great portrayal about how ordinary people are. It really isn't safe for them to talk about politics. Any implied criticism of the current regime is actually quite dangerous, even for inconsequential, citizens with no power. So. Yes, the discourse was highly censored, but it's dangerous to talk, but people can't seem to stop themselves. This is so much on everybody's mind that they can't seem to keep from talking about it, even though discussing it explicitly is not entirely safe. So, yeah, I think this scene is really kind of great.
Especially as it's not very safe, considering they're about to pick up the princess. It's not like you're doing this hundreds of miles away in a completely different locale. They're surrounded by people who might be able to overhear them, who are not impartial. Alan.
Yeah, I mean, Helen made a suggestion in the chat that at a later date, but not much later, the Whitecoats were actually in northern regiments, and I think actually this would work very well if you got 3 people who could carry either a Geordie or a Yorkshire accent for those 3, to give a greater counterpoint with the antics of the courtiers.
Helen.
Yeah, they were very specifically about 40 years later than this play was written, and Newcastle men, every single one of them. They were raised from miners.
But in this text it says 100 northern whitecoats, so they're definitely northerners already.
But Geordie is very specific, and I think these were Geordies.
Hey, man.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a lovely scene to just drop out as well and just do separately. You just need to throw in a bit of context in a couple of lines, and you can run this scene and play with this scene in all sorts of interesting ways. I really like this as just an acting exercise. I think it's really nice. Rachael, and then we will move on.
What is a white coat? What is like that military designation? Are they military? What are they? If somebody could explain.
I think they just wear white coats. I think it's just their livery.
A specific regiment with a specific dress code.
I think they bring it up in the previous scene to say then their northern white coats are going to be her guard, so that when they walk on stage, you immediately know that they are her guard. I think that's its only function in the text.
It can't be coats you'd actually wear in battle, though. That would be really impractical. And they must be what you wear when you're kind of, marching along.
Helen.
But...
Au contraire, they were wearing white coats at the Battle of Marston Moor, and they died to a man. Although quarter was offered them, they, being Geordies and being faced by a load of Scots, there was no way they were going to surrender. And they were definitely had white coats. Everybody says so.
Terrible camouflage.
Well, you didn't need camouflage.
Years before camouflage.
Yeah. What you wanted to know was who the enemy were and who your side were. That was what mattered. That's why everyone wore such bright colours. There wasn't that much guerrilla warfare going on where that sort of thing mattered. Anyway, scene 6. As we go from discussions of open warfare to presumably political warfare. Let's find out what's happening with Enter Winchester and Beningfield.
Did you not mark what a piteous eye she cast to the Queen's window as she passed along? Fain she would have stayed, but that I caused the bargemen to make haste and row away.
The bargemen were too desperate, my lord, in staying till the water was so low, for then... being underneath the bridge, the barge's stern did strike upon the ground, and was in danger to have drowned us all.
Well, she escaped that danger. Would she but conform herself in her opinion, she only might rely upon my love to win her to the favour of the Queen.
But that will never be. This is my censure. If she be guilty in the least degree, may all her wrongs survive and light on her. In other ways, that she be cleared. Thus both ways I wish her down, or else her state to raise.
Enter Sussex, Tame, Howard, Chandos, and Gage.
Why doth the princess keep her barge so long? Why lands she not? Someone go see the cause.
That shall be my charge, my lord.
Exit Gage.
Oh me, my lords, her state is wondrous hard. I have seen the day my hand I'd not have lent to bring my sovereign sister to the Tower. Good my lords, stretch your commission to do this princess but some little favour.
My lord, let not the love we bear the princess incur the Queen's displeasure. 'Tis no dallying with the matters of state. Who dares gainsay the Queen?
Marry a god, not I, no, not I. Yet who shall hinder these mine eyes to furrow for her sorrow? By gods, marry, dear, that the Queen could not, though herself were here. My lords, if it were held foul treason to grieve for her hard usage, by my soul, mine eyes would hardly prove me a true subject. 'Tis the Queen's pleasure, and we must obey. But I shall mourn, should Queen and Queen say nay.
Enter Gage.
My grieved mistress humbly thus entreats, for to remove back to the common stairs, and not to land where traitors put to shore. Some difference she entreats your honours make twixt crystal fountains and foul muddy springs, twixt those that are condemned by law, and those whom treason stain did never blemish. Thus she attends your answer, and sits still, whilst her wet eyes full marry a tear doth spill.
Marry a god, 'tis true, and 'tis no reason. Launch, bargeman. Good lady, land where traitors used to land, and for her guilt be proved? Gods, marry, no, and the Queen wills it that it should be so.
My lord, you must look into our commission. No favours granted. She of force must land. 'Tis a degree which we cannot withstand. So tell her, Master Gage.
Exit Gage.
As good a lady as e'er England bred, would he that had caused this woe had lost his head.
Enter Gage, Elizabeth, and Clarinetta, her gentlewoman.
Madam, you have stepped too short into the water.
No matter where I tread, would where I set my foot, there lay my head. Land traitor-like, my foot's wet in a flood, so shall my heart ere long be drenched in blood.
Enter the Constable of the Tower.
Here comes the Constable of the Tower. This is your charge.
And I receive my prisoner. Come, will you go?
Whither, my lord? Unto a gate of iron, where grief and care my poor heart shall environ? I am not well.
A chair for the princess.
Here's no chair for prisoners. Come, will you see your chamber?
Then on this stone, this cold stone, I will sit. I needs must say, you hardly me entreat, when for a chair this hard stone is my seat.
My lord, you deal too cruelly with the princess. You knew her father. She's no stranger to you.
Madam, it rains.
Good lady, take my cloak.
Now, let it alone. See, gentlemen, weeps tears into my bosom. On this cold stone I sit, rain in my face. But better here than in a worser place, where this bad man will lead me. Clarintia, reach my book. Now, lead me where you please from sight of day, or in a dungeon I shall see to pray.
And exeunt Elizabeth, Gage, Clarintia, and Constable of the Tower.
Nay, nay, you need not bolt and lock so fast. She is no starter. Honourable lord, speak to the queen. She may have some release.
Re-enter the Constable of the Tower.
So, let me alone to cope her. I'll use her so, the queen shall much commend my diligent care.
Where have you left the princess?
Where she is safe enough, I warrant you. I have not granted her the privilege of any walk or garden, or to ope her windows, casements to receive the air.
My lord, you deal without respect, and worse than your commission can maintain.
My lord, I hope I know my office well, and better than yourself within this place. Then teach not me my duty. She shall be used so still, the queen commands, and I obey her will.
But if this time should alter, mark me well, would this be answered? Could it, fellow peers? I think not so.
Tush, tush. The queen is young, likely to bear of her own body a more royal air.
Re-enter Gage.
My lords, the princess humbly entreats that her own servants may bear up her diet. A company of base untutored slaves, whose hands did never serve a princess board, do take that privilege.
'Twas my appointment, and it shall be so.
God's marry, dear, but it shall not be. Lord Howard, join with me. Will to the king.
Enter soldiers with dishes.
Say, good my lords, for instance, see they come. If this be seemly, let your honours judge.
Come, my lords, why do you stay so long? The queen's high favour shall amend this wrong.
Exeunt everyone apart from Gage and the Constable.
Now, sir, what have you got by your complaining, you common find fault? What, is your mistress's stomach so queasy? Our honest soldiers must not touch her meat, then let her fast. I know her stomach will come down at last.
Enter soldiers with more dishes. Gage's takes one from them.
Untutored slave, I'll ease thee of this burthen. Her highness scorns to touch the dish her servants bring not up.
Presume to touch a dish, I'll lodge thee there, where thou shalt see no sun in 1 whole year.
Exit the Constable of the Tower and soldiers.
I would to God you would in any place, where I might live from thought of her disgrace. O thou all-feeling heavens, with piteous eye, look on the oppressions of their cruelty. Let not thy truth by falsehood be oppressed, but let her virtue shine, and give her rest. Confound the sleights and practice of those men, whose pride do kick against the seat of heaven. O draw the curtains from their filthy fin, and make them loathe the hell which they live in. Prosper the princess, and her life defend, a glorious comfort to her troubles send. If ever thou hadst pity, hear my prayer, and give releasement to a prince's care.
Exit Gage. We then have a dumb show. Enter 6 with torches. Tame and Chandos bareheaded. Philip and Mary after them, then Winchester, Beningfield and attendants. At the other door we have Sussex and Howard. Sussex delivers a petition to the king. The king receives it and shows it to the queen. She shows it to Winchester and to Beningfield. They storm. The king whispers to Sussex and raises him and Howard, gives them the petition. They take their leaves and depart. The king whispers a little to the queen. Exeunt. So, yes, the whole business of appealing to the king rather than the queen demonstrated in dumb show there. Go to Philip. He might sort this out. Or that might go very badly. Yeah. So yes, we have the scene of Elizabeth not wanting to enter the tower, and it's getting a bit damp, getting a bit rainy. Aliki, then Rachael.
So it's not just about not wanting to enter the tower, it's about not wanting to come in through the gate that traitors are brought in through.
Yes.
And there's a lot of attention to the small or the relatively minor indignities of her imprisonment. That whole scene about who brings her the food and what door she comes in through and all of that is, just noting that. It's not just, oh, she's been put in the tower, how sad. You see what I mean?
Yeah, it's the symbolism of what's happening here, and just I mean, it's not just that the constable is a job's worth, but it's this insistence on cruelty here. You've got to. This is my commission. We're going to do it absolutely by the letter. You want food? My men are going to bring it, and you're going to like it. And you're not even going to let the Gage take it in. Not even letting, and if you do, I'm going to put you in a hole where the sun don't shine, and you're never going to be seen again. So yeah, there's almost pointless cruelty as well as the political side of this, and also disagreements among all of these many people. Sussex going, this it's a bit much. Winchester going, more. Yeah. Other thoughts in the room. Rachael, then Elizabeth.
I mean, Sussex seems to, even before this, be slightly partial to Elizabeth. Not in a romantic way, but I think in terms of who he's siding with in this thing, I think he would rather her as queen. But also the little juggling of plates that's going on. I think the servants fear and the people who are loyal to Elizabeth are afraid that she could be poisoned if she doesn't have, if her food isn't monitored. And I think the constables, coming from the point that they could sneak in, either if her servants have control of the food, that they could sneak in messages or some sort of, contraband to her. And I think Gage is so clever that in the end he touches the dish and they take it away. And I think he's really there is this real fear, especially after the Lord's leave, that they would try and poison her when no one's around. And just by him touching that plate, the constable takes it back. So there's a lot of levels, I think, that could be played with in this scene.
We're going to move on after Elizabeth, and then we'll go into scene 8.
Yeah, I just thought it was really interesting what Rachael was just saying about the way this scene could be played. I was wondering how much Elizabeth would have known about her mother, because I was reminded of Anne, and maybe part of why Elizabeth doesn't want to go through that gate is to do with what happened to Anne and about how suddenly that all unraveled. But I wasn't sure how much she would have known about the sort of details of Anne's death.
I would imagine she's fairly cognizant of most of them, and I think that's a really good point. Actually, we haven't picked up. I mean, the text does not really give us any of those sort of details, but it's the kind of detail that people with a general knowledge of Elizabeth and Tudors, etc., would know, or at least a reasonable percentage. So yeah, no, that's a really good point. I'd totally forgotten about that. Very briefly, Alan.
That's also a story that the yeomen use on the present-day tours of the Tower. That it was the echo of her mother's fate.
Anyway, we will move on to scene 8. We've had the dumb show, the petition to the king first, and some storming from the very anti-Elizabeth faction. We now go to scene 8. Enter the Constable of the Tower and Gage.
The princess thus entreats you, honoured lord, she may but walk in the lieutenant's garden, or else repose herself in the queen's lodgings. My honoured lord, grant this, as you did love the famous Henry, her deceased father.
Come, talk not to me, for I am resolved. Nor lodging, garden, nor lieutenant's walks shall here be granted. She's a prisoner.
My lord, they shall.
How shall they, knave?
If the queen please, they shall. A noble and right reverend counsellor promised to beg it of her majesty, and if she say the word, my lord, she shall.
Ay, if she say the word, it shall be so. My lord of Winchester speaks the contrary. So do the clergy. They are honest men.
My honoured lord, why should you take delight and torture a poor lady innocent? The queen, I know, when she shall hear of this, will greatly discommend your cruelty. You served her father, and he loved you well. You served her brother, and he held you dear. And can you hate the sister he best loved? You serve her sister, she esteems you high, and you may live to serve her ere you die. And therefore, good my lord, let this prevail, only the casements of her windows ope, whereby she may receive fresh gladsome air.
No, you preach well to deaf men. No, not I. So letters may fly in. I'll none of that. She is my prisoner, and if I durst, but that my warrant is not yet so strict, I'd lay her in a dungeon where her eyes should not have light to read her prayer book. So would I danger both her soul and body, 'cause she is an alien to us Catholics. Her bed should be all snakes, her rest despair. Torture should make her curse her faithless prayer.
Enter Sussex, Howard, and servants.
My lord, it is the pleasure of the Queen, the prisoner princess should have all the use of the lieutenant's garden, the Queen's lodgings, and all the liberty that this place affords.
What means her grace by that?
You may go ask her, and you will, my lord. Moreover, it is her highness' further pleasure that her sworn servants shall attend on her. 2 gentlemen of her ewry, 2 of her pantry, 2 of her kitchen, and 2 of her wardrobe, beside this gentleman here, Master Gage.
The next will be her freedom. Oh, this mads me.
Which way lies the princess?
This way, my lord.
This will be glad tidings. Come, let's tell her grace.
And they exit, leaving Constable and Gage.
Will't please your honour let my lady walk in the lieutenant's garden, or may but see the lodgings of the queen, or ope the casements to receive fresh air? Shall she, my lord? Shall she this freedom use? She shall, for you can neither will nor choose. Or shall she have some servants of her own to attend on her? I pray let it be so, and let your look no more prisoners daunt. I pray deny not what you needs must grant.
And exit Gage.
base groom flouts me. Oh, this frets my heart. These knaves will jet upon their privilege, but yet I'll vex her. I have found the means. I'll have my cooks to dress my meat with hers, and every officer my men shall match. Oh, that I could but drain her heart's dear blood. Oh, it would feed me, do my soul much good.
Enter the clown beating a soldier. Exit. Enter the cook beating another soldier. Questions
How?
later.
How now? What means the fellow?
Audacious slave, presuming in my place.
Sir, 'twas my pleasure, and I did command it.
The proudest he that keeps within the tower shall have not I to my private office.
No, sir. Why, say 'tis I.
Be it yourself or any other here, I'll make him sup the hottest broth I have.
You will not.
Zounds, I will. I have been true to her and will be still.
Exit cook.
Well, I'll have this amended ere it be long, and venge myself on her for all their wrong.
And they exit. We're going to run into the next scene. Scene 9. Enter a boy with a nosegay.
I've got another nosegay for my young lady. My lord said I should be soundly whipped if I were seen to bring her any more, but yet I'll venture once again. She's so good. Oh, here's her chamber. I'll call and see if she be stirring. Where are you, lady?
Welcome, sweet boy. What hast thou brought me there?
Madam, I have brought you another nosegay, but you must not let it be seen, for if it be, I shall be soundly whipped, indeed I shall.
God have mercy, boy. Here's to requite thy love.
And exit Elizabeth. Enter Constable Sussex, Howard, and attendants.
Stay him! Stay him! Oh, have I caught you, sir? Where have you been?
To carry my young lady some more flowers.
Alas, my lord, a child, pray let him go.
A crafty knave, my lords. Search him for letters.
Letters, my lord? It is impossible.
Come, tell me what letters thou carriest her. I'll give thee figs and sugar plums.
Will you indeed? Well, I'll take your word, for you look like an honest man.
Now, tell me what letters thou deliverest.
Faith, Gaffer, I know no letters but great A, B, and C. I'm not come to K yet. Now, Gaffer, will you give me any sugar plums?
Yes, marry will I. Take him away. Let him be soundly whipped. I charge you, sirrah.
Enter Elizabeth Gage and clarinetier.
Keep even infants from us. They do well. My sight they have too long barred, and now my smell. This tower hath made me fall to huswifery. I spend my labours to relieve the poor. Go, Gage, distribute these to those that need.
All right. Enter Winchester, Beningfield, and Tame.
Madam, the Queen, out of her royal bounty, hath freed you from the thraldom of the tower, and now this gentleman must be your guardian.
I thank her she hath rid me of a tyrant. Is he appointed now to be my keeper? What is he, lord?
A gentleman in favour with the Queen.
It seems so by his charge. But tell me, Gage, is yet the scaffold standing on Tower Hill, whereon young Guilford and the Lady Jane did suffer death?
Upon my life it stands not.
Lord Howard, what is he?
Lord Howard.
Apologies. A gentleman, though of a stern aspect, yet mild enough, I hope your grace will find.
Hath he not, think you, a stretched conscience? And if my secret murder should be put into his hands, hath he not heart, think you, to execute?
Defend it, heaven, and God's almighty hand betwixt your grace and such intendments stand.
Come, madam, will you go?
With all my heart. Farewell, farewell. I am freed from limbo and sent to hell.
And exit. What a lot of scenes that are quite difficult to unpick as to precisely whether they're individual scenes or running on scenes, and action. I love the boy. The boy is a proper, look, he wants to give flowers to the lovely princess. And then he gets beaten, but never mind. But and all the thing about them being suspicious, which Rachael was picking up earlier. Is he bringing letters to the Queen? And of course, the only letters he knows are his A, B, C. He hasn't got to K yet. I love that.
Yeah.
He knows it. He knows it's not far away, but he hasn't quite joined all the dots. That's so sweet. I really love that. The Constable as well. We've really fleshed out why the Constable is such a git, because he's absolutely it's for religious reasons he is a bit of an extremist, shall we say here. I mean, from within their terms he's not, but he knows an enemy when he sees one. Her bed should all be snakes. So he's not a fan. Not a fan. But I love the way Gage is just sort of so, once everything's been turned around, and then basically says almost the same speech again that he said earlier, but this time in a slightly more sarky way. Loving that. Thoughts in the room? Rachael?
On one hand, production could decide that he is the religious extremist. On another hand, I think also Gage and Sussex, around when he gives that sort of hard-lined speech of, and says that and reveals that he's Catholic, Gage and Sussex, they kept saying, if the Queen were to die, and even though they have the if in it, we have that soldiers scene before where there's that thinly veiled criticism of her. And I think, them being in close proximity to the princess, the saying, if the Queen were to die, it sounds like they might be trying to pull him into this plot that they might be working on. And he's saying, I don't want any part of it, and I'm loyal to this Queen, and I'm not planning on her death like you are.
Alan?
I must admit, I'm getting a character view of the Constable as being, a senior non-commissioned officer who basically only knows you follow the last order given. You don't actually think.
Sarah?
I don't think that's right. I mean, I am no Tudor historian, and we have Tudor historians in the room, so they could correct me. But I had a feeling that the Constable of the Tower was a high up. I thought it was a position that was given to someone with a title. I mean, I'm sure, and I'm only saying this because I've read Hilary Mantel, but I'm sure the Constable of the Tower in Henry's time was a Sir somebody.
Yeah, and it's a question of how far he's taking his brief, and he's taking his brief too far. I mean, that's the thing, is it's not just the letter of his orders. He's slightly taking it further than that, and it's a question of the logic of why he's doing that. Helen, then Aliki.
Yeah, I mean, the Constable is the Lord Constable here, but he's obviously got his own agenda, which is the last thing we want, is a rebellion against the legitimate heir in the Protestant cause. The others are either very full of foresight that she may in 6 years' time become queen, but in fact there was no particular reason at this point to believe that she was likely to succeed.
Aliki.
Sorry, I'm temporarily distracted by that, just thinking that just having a married woman or a woman who has just been married as ruler increases the possibilities they won't survive because childbirth. It's such a dangerous process. And of course, they have just had a king die ridiculously young in the Two Women's Brother. But aside from that, what I was saying is, again, I'm interested in how much detail they go into in the humiliations of Elizabeth's imprisonment. We have a play possibly titled The Troubles of Elizabeth II, and she's not even Elizabeth I, sorry, of Queen Elizabeth. And she's not even queen yet. And here we are kind of going into like granular detail about her imprisonment.
Yeah, because, you know, the timescale of what the action of this play is relatively, you know, for a history play, is very brief in terms of time. You know, when we have history plays which leap over 7 to 10 years in a scene, to actually spend, you know, this level of time. But maybe Heywood has learnt that, you know, you've got to keep the table warm for the sequels. You know, take your time, people. Take your time. Don't use up all the good material. Lynn, then Lois, then Lalitte.
Yeah, I really enjoy all the what we would now call subtext that's going on in this play. I mean, I don't like to qualify anything Helen says because she's the real scholar and I'm not. But you know, one of the characters says the queen is young and she'll probably have an heir that's going to be more legitimate. So she and Philip will have children and then Elizabeth will be out of the picture. Mary was 37 when she became queen. That's getting on in the 16th century to start a family. Not impossible at all. So I mean, certainly it's entirely possible that Philip and Mary could have had one child, and that's all it would have taken, that might have survived to adulthood, although about half of early modern children did not survive to adulthood. So it's very, very dicey. The succession could go either way. Mary could have a child who then succeeds and the Catholic restoration is safe, but that's by no means guaranteed. Childbirth was somewhat risky. It's not as risky as we tend to think of it. About 2% of women died in childbirth, but still that's a non-negligible number. And infant mortality was high and early childhood mortality was high. Absolutely no guarantee that Mary's succession would happen. So here's Sussex and Gage trying to play both sides and not make enemies of anybody because it's completely up in the air what's going to happen.
Lois.
I think one reason that Heywood is sticking to the very early years of this history is that he probably doesn't dare deal with the later period yet. There are just too many living people that were involved in it. And I mean, Sir Walter Raleigh wrote in his History of the World that if you follow history too closely at the heels, she may strike out your teeth. I think that's probably a good idea.
Yeah, because, you know, it's not like people were litigious at the time. Yeah, Lalitte.
I've now forgotten the point I was. Yes, I was going to. Where would all these details have come from? I mean, Elizabeth kept diaries and wrote poetry. Is this where they would have found? You know, how do people know all the stuff that went on at the Tower? Helen.
I'll go to Helen on that one.
I imagine that it was common knowledge. It's news to me that Elizabeth kept a diary. If she did, I'd love to read it.
Maybe I'm getting mixed up with the poems. I know she wrote poems.
Well, and she certainly translated material.
Yeah,
as well.
But I mean, even right up to the last day of her life, she was tremendously careful about letting people know what she was thinking. I don't see her writing a diary. I truly don't. But no, I mean, it was one of the stories. I've no doubt if we asked Angela, she'd tell you there was a ballad.
And I think ballads is probably a very important source of data for this kind of text. We've had that for other plays as well, actually, where ballad sources are really important to just getting the story across. So I think that's probably a very important source. It's a really interesting question whether anyone's written any substantive source for this kind of material at this period. I genuinely don't know. I know for earlier plays, there's lots and lots of earlier history that you can work on that is in print in different forms. I don't know what's in print for Elizabeth. It's a really good question. Lois?
Yes, I was just wondering, I can't remember whether she turns up in Fox's Book of Martyrs, but certainly a lot of, people martyred in Mary's reign are in there. And I think Elizabeth may be as well. I mean, obviously she wasn't a martyr, but she suffered in Mary's reign.
That's probably, I once again, I don't know, I could check, and I will check for the next reading, but certainly, yes, Fox would be an extremely good source for this.
And, of course, people would be writing about other players at the time, but maybe not directly Elizabeth, so there might be, again, part of that common pool. I don't want to get too dragged down to source. I want to stick with the play that, as presented to us, as if it was a production that we were watching and we're in the audience going, Rachael.
I was going to... when I was talking about the Constable before, I said that, a production with like the religion, like about his thing, but I think you could do the same with Sussex and Gage. And was it even Howard that Sussex mentions at some point? Is Sussex and those guys, their faction, is their motivation religious, or is their motivation that that Elizabeth is younger, she is unmarried, and like Lynn said, that perhaps she could create an heir where Mary could not, and not just focusing on their reproductive, but Mary is married to somebody else, and perhaps somebody from that faction, from Sussex's fashion, would like Elizabeth to marry somebody a domestic to gain that power for themselves.
I don't know how much the text is telling us about what individual motivations are. The Constable's given us actually a very, very strong motivation. I'm not sure if anyone has actually explicated in the text beyond their position. I don't know if anyone's really explicated why. We might infer, and there may be things that we can dig out of the text, but I wasn't getting huge waves of this is why, and I think we've got to be a bit careful about overlaying too much history onto this. Let's see what's coming out of the text. I'm going to go to Sarah.
Are we on final thoughts?
We are, with the few moments that we have available for everyone. Yes, wave if you have a final thought.
Right, okay, because my final thought about this, following on from what you've just said, is that what I find fascinating about this play is that you cannot, look at how much time, in spite of all your best efforts, Rob, look at how much time we've spent discussing the history today. And I think you have to factor that in, because if you were to stage this, the audience are going to come at it with having read books, history books about her, having read novels, having watched dodgy Hollywood films where they get all the history wrong, but it doesn't matter because that's their version of her. And I think you kind of almost have to embrace that the parts in this play are so well written. I think the individual characters are so great, and yeah, there's perhaps not a lot of laid out individual motivation apart from with the Constable, but that kind of makes it even more intriguing in a way for a director and a cast, because you can layer it on if you want to. And I think, actually embracing the fact that your audience, this is perhaps the one period of history that a lot of your audience are going to be vaguely familiar with in some way, actually embracing that and, recognizing that there are going to be echoes and there are going to be themes and there are going to be people arguing about this in the bar afterwards is actually something that you could funnel into the play and use in a production.
Yeah, but we do need to unpack what the text is saying first.
True.
Which is, that's the thing, is that some of the problems we're having is we're overlaying onto a text things that may not be there, and we can do that afterwards in production. That's absolutely cool. And sure, absolutely, audience responses on that there is can do all sorts of things. I'll go to Lalitte, then Lynn, then Lois.
I'm actually wondering if there's anywhere near the Tower of London where this could be performed in quite a kind of outdoor impromptu setting, kind of on the riverside. I mean, I remember seeing, God help us, Gilbert and Sullivan at the Tower of London, but there must be lots of parts there where you'd be really close to where it all happened. I mean, I'm sure you can still visit Traitor's Gate, and it would be fantastic. I think that there's something very mediate about the play that might lend itself almost more to kind of street theatre than a kind of court theatre.
The locales of this half of the play have been relatively focused in that way, actually. So yeah, that might be a way to go. Lynn, muted at present. Your words are going only a few feet.
I'm an idiot. But that's okay. Thinking about interpretive approaches to this, I feel like these days the pitfall would be getting too heavy-handed in portraying the Catholic sympathizers as the bad guys. Yeah, the Constable is pretty creepy and unlikable, but I don't think you want to lean into that. I think if you can, you want to make him sincere, maybe a little overzealous, but he is the way he is because he thinks it's right and that God is on his side. Because I think that makes it more interesting, is that the conflict isn't between people who are right and people who are wrong, but people who both believe in their hearts that they're right. That Mary is a devout, sincere Catholic, and that there are people in her court who are secretly devout, sincere Protestants, and this creates tension and tragedy and conflict. So I think that a production should be careful not to create good guys and bad guys, but people who all believe that they're good.
Yeah, and actually I think that the text is pushing us to a degree in that direction, because nobody's done anything outrageously unreasonable in this play. The Constable's a bit of an arse in terms of the interpretation of his orders, and Winchester does seem to be more engaged in this process than others. But this is a complex political tussle going on here. Mary isn't doing anything particularly unreasonable. She's just got married and been crowned, and that's cool. And she's being very cagey. But apart from that, there's and of course, pretty much. But you've got to remember, basically, everyone's Catholic as well. I mean, that's the thing, is that it's just the degree of what they mean by that. They wouldn't be using the word Protestant. So yeah, there's all sorts of issues. That's me dipping into history. Damn, you've all got me at it now. Lois.
Yeah, and I mean, following on from that, I was just intrigued by the stage direction, saying that Winchester and somebody else, they storm when a message comes through that they don't like, because that does suggest a kind of mustache twirling villain type behavior. I don't know really what storming was in the sort of theatrical code, but they obviously have to do something. But it sort of fits. I mean, part of the charm of the play is the way that there are just so many of these incredibly good people all saying how lovely Elizabeth is, and the sweet little boy bringing flowers and so on. And what I wonder about is, in a performance, would there be any tendency to treat these people as instead of in inverted commas, or send them up slightly? I mean, it can easily go into the direction of melodrama with the villains storming and the good people all holding flowers and saying, "Isn't Elizabeth lovely?" But the thing does also, as you say, go and I think suggest something much more complex than that. And well, we'll see more really as we go on, or you will, because I'm not here tomorrow.
For Storm, rage or anger are the things we've got available from other texts in terms of context. So it does seem like it could just be they're very, very cross.
But in a dumb show, you've got to do something to really show it.
They can't be too subtle.
Yeah.
In that context, but yeah, it's a defiance of what they want. So they're allowed to be cross. That's cool. Anybody bursting with any final thoughts, because we have just hit the final moments. Elizabeth.
Yeah, I was just wanting to say about how Mary comes across in this play. So far, she seems really kind of like to me, quite civil and level-headed. She doesn't seem to be like a hothead or hot-tempered. I'm not too sure about the dumb show. I think the dumb show kind of shows a little bit different an aspect to her. But I kind of know her as Bloody Mary. And so this has given a kind of different side to her so far. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, as we've been dipping into history quite a lot, you know, at this stage of the reign, you know, she isn't Bloody Mary yet. You know, this is yet to come. The reign will go sideways later on for all sorts of reasons. But at this stage, again, there's plenty of people. Plenty of Catholics really enthused about, oh, well, it's going to go back to the old ways. Everything's going to be fine.
It's all going to be...
This will all be sweetness and light. And then they meet Mary and go, oh, actually, she's a bit of a disappointment, but never mind. Yeah, there's all sorts of room there as we continue dancing between our idea of history and Heywood's idea of history. There's going to be more of that as we return to this play tomorrow for the concluding part. The first part is not a lengthy play. Part 2 is. So there's a lot more Elizabeth to come. All that remains, thank all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye.
Bye.
I spit at treason.